So for the rest of this section, what I want you to do is look at the picture, try to see what the chart's trying to say, and try to see why we're including this as misleading data or misleading visual representations. If you go to the website on the link that I provided for you at the beginning of the notes, you're going to see a nice write-up on each one of these as why it was bad. So for instance, on this first one, it says over 100 million now receiving federal welfare. So over 100 million people in the U.S. now receiving some form of federal welfare. Well, if you look at this, look at the classes that they're doing. They're dividing it by the quarters, Q1, 2, 3, 4, Q1, 2, 3, 4, Q1, 2, and that's where it stops right there. So it looks like, if you look at this picture, to me, the number of people going on welfare is astronomical. But look at this. It says figures count means tested welfare, not Social Security or Medicare. So what are they talking about in terms of welfare? What does it mean to receive welfare? What kind of support are they meaning? So what this was done, or why this was presented, is to try to scare you to think, oh my God, look how many lazy people there are in the world that are going on to welfare or not. Well, that's not the truth. That's not the fact. What does it mean to be on welfare? Well, to be on welfare, you actually have to work. A lot of these people already have full-time jobs. It just doesn't support them and their families. So the welfare that they're getting is just additional supplemental income, or for instance, reduced housing. So where it's government-supported housing. All of these are means of welfare. So when you see this number, 100 million, first of all, you've got to know what the population is. The population is over 700 million. So this is like 1/7 of the population. You're talking about 15% or less. But that's certainly not how these bars make you feel. These bars, this graph is to make you feel scared about the number of people going on welfare is absolutely astronomical. Something else that I want you to think of, what happened to our population from 2009 to 2011? Well, the population increased significantly. So for instance, in 2009, in quarter one, it looks like there's roughly 97,000 people on welfare. Well, think about or 97 million, 97 million. Well, what percentage of the population was that? Because what I guarantee you, because of the population increase from 2009 to 2011, that the percentage of people on welfare is not increasing significantly. The percentage of people, so if it's 97,000 in 2009, that should be more closer to 100,000 or 110,000 in 2011, because the number of people in America have significantly increased over just those couple of years in time. So they're using quantity instead of percentages because the percentages don't scare you. If you saw a percentage of something like 13%, to 13.2% to 13.1% to 13.3%. That's not a big change, and that's not scary. That's not flashy. That's not quote unquote news. But if I show you the quantity, it scares you. If I make these graphs go all the way to the top, making it seem like almost all Americans are receiving welfare, then that's what this graph shows. These are specifically meant to scare you. You have to start asking questions. Should that quantity be increasing? Well, the answer is yes, that quantity should be increasing. If it remains consistent, the same percentage of people are on welfare, it will increase. It's just that simple. Not only, you also have to consider what was happening in the economy at that time. Was the economy getting better or getting worse? What was actually happening? So there's a lot going on behind the story, but that's not what the visual representation shows you. You guys are going to see a lot of this over the next political season. They're going to show you lots of graphs and lots of charts. They know that the number one thing to get you to vote is not something that you agree with, it's something you disagree with. They know that fear is the number one driver to get people to vote. So what are they going to try to do? Invoke fear in you. You guys are going to see constant posts with constant misleading information that's going to try to put the fear of God or the fear of whoever into you to make you vote how they want you to vote. That is some of what was happening with the Russian scandals and the Russian meddling in the last presidential election, specifically with the emails of Hillary Clinton. A lot of news was coming out about that information to make you fearful that Hillary Clinton was hiding something, to get you to vote for Donald Trump. So they passed misinformation, they passed misleading graphs, they passed misleading stuff to influence your vote. And guess what? It worked. So I hope you guys can look through it this election season. I don't care who you vote for, but I want you to look through the BS in these things. Here's another one for you that's nice and funny. It says US Today snapshots. It says common injuries children suffer. Let's just look at this real quick. It says spinal, lower arm, upper arm, lower leg, and thigh bone. Holy crap. If I add up those numbers right there, there's 20, 40, 60, 70, 80. This seems like almost 80-ish, 90-ish percentage of children are getting hurt. Well, I got to read some more about this one right here. So it's common injuries children suffer. It's the top traumatic orthopedic injuries for which children are hospitalized. So this is only orthopedic injuries. This is not saying all children. It's if they come to the hospital with an orthopedic injury, here's how it's breaking down. Okay, well that's drastically changing it. This doesn't show me what percentage of children have orthopedic injuries. This is just of those who have orthopedic injuries. So while it is written there, it's still extremely misleading. I mean, this looks like 21.5% of children get a lower leg injury, and that's just not true. If you don't read and specifically understand the charts, you're going to be misled on what it's actually saying. Here's another great one from Fox News that we see. It says, if Bush tax cuts expire, the top tax rate. Well, if you looked at my tax section that we covered earlier this semester, what you will notice is that tax systems are tiered. So very few people pay the top tax rate. In fact, only about 1% of the population pay the top tax rate. So what it's showing here is the tax rate, the top tax rate right now for the top tier, that 1% of people, the highest tax rate they pay is 35%. And if it were cut, it would go to 39.6%. That is only that one tier of taxes. 99% of Americans would never have seen that tax rate increase. But look what Fox News is trying to do. They're trying to make you feel that the tax rate is going to skyrocket, that you're going to be paying 39.6% taxes on all your taxes. That is absolute crap. That is not at all how the tax system works. This is only 1% of the American population would be paying this, and that is only for their money earned above $250,000 that they're taxed at this rate. The first $250,000 is taxed at a significantly lower rate. So what they do is they take that shining stuff, what makes the biggest difference, they throw it in your face and they try to make it change. I also want you to notice the size difference and the scale of this. So 35% is like what, 1/4, not even 1/4 of this picture, whereas 39%, which only represents a 5% increase, 5% increase being 1/7, that's over 3 or 4 times the size of the picture of the bar. So visually, it looks like my tax rates are going to go up about 4 times what they are now. That's what that visual comparison shows. Since the one on the right is about 4 times the size as the one on the left, you're thinking it's 4 times as many taxes. Well, it's not. It's only 4% more taxes, certainly not 4 times the amount of taxes. And even then, again, this is for only the top 1%, the top tax bracket. 1% of Americans actually go in and pay that top tax bracket. It is absolutely ludicrous that they put this on there and try to fear people into voting for who they wanted to win this election. Okay? Look on the next ones right here. Percent of people who agree with court. We have 62% of Democrats, we have 54% of Republicans, and 54% of independents. I don't know about you, but it seems to me that those numbers don't add up to 100%. So where did they get their data from here? What the heck are they even talking about? Agree with court, like should we have court or not? I have no idea what this graph is about. And I said percent. I don't even know if that's a percentage. Is this people? Is it 62 people, 62 Democrats of however many that they asked? So they haven't labeled their units here. We don't even know if that's percent. Oh, it does say percent, sorry. So they do say percent here, but what the heck are they talking about? Who did they ask? And what court are they even talking about? Is it a specific case that they're talking about? What is it? Okay, so you need far more information for this chart to make any sense whatsoever. Okay, so I'm not going to lie, this one did come out of Yale University, and it's one of the scariest things that I've ever seen. The idea of this was to show that global warming is out of control. And what they were doing is they were measuring temperature changes in a given place. It was in New Haven, Connecticut. And this is what they were doing. They were measuring the average monthly temperature and plotted that over a year. So what does this graph show us? It shows in January the average temperature was about 26, and in July it was all the way up to about 71. And what they were trying to say is global warming is out of control. I don't know about you, but when I think about this, I think about January being during winter and July being during summer. The temperatures in January most certainly should be lower than the temperature in July. This has absolutely nothing to do with global warming. All this has to do with is winter versus summer. Your temperature should gradually go up like this. It has absolutely nothing to do with global warming. So how could have they looked at this data and tried to prove global warming? Well, first of all, global warming isn't about temperature increase necessarily. It's about climate change. So it's higher highs and lower lows. So we're not just comparing high temperatures, we're comparing the highest highs and the lowest lows. That's climate change. It's not just temperature change. It is pure climate change. So that's the first argument, is know what the hell you're talking about. Just temperatures is not global warming. Global warming is about climate change. Second of all, you would need to compare year-to-year data, not month-to-month data. So for instance, January in 1950 versus January in 1980 versus January in 2010 versus January in 2040, which doesn't exist yet, I get that. But you would have to compare years of data, not months of data. You'd have to compare Januaries to Januaries to see how are things changing. And again, global warming is about climate change. It is not about exact temperature change. So make sure you understand that. Go on to this next one. It's brilliant here. It says clinical reference study of itch relief. So this was a commercial, and it says in 1 minute you have hydrocortisone, I think is what that is, hydrocortisone versus Lanacane in 1 minute, and then in 60 minutes, hydrocortisone and Lanacane. Notice there is no Y scale here. We have no idea what they're talking about. I guess this is about itch relief, and it's supposed to show that Lanacane has significantly more itch relief than hydrocortisone. Not only does it have short-term better, but long-term better. That's what they're trying to say, but I have no damn clue what these bars represent. They haven't talked about it. There's no scaling here for me to compare. I have no idea what these measures of difference are. So all they're trying to do is state their message with complete bogus pictures, complete bogus mathematics. This last one's meant, again, to fear you away from college. Let's take a look at this. It says the diminishing financial return of education, which I do agree that the financial return of investigation is decreasing, but let's take a look at this right here. So the blue one is tuition, room, and board, and if you notice, the cost of tuition, room, and board is skyrocketing, and it is. And I don't like it, but it is. And then it says bachelor degree earnings. Well, if school is costing significantly more, but the bachelor degree earnings is still about the same. Okay, so what does this make you feel? This makes me feel like the cost of school isn't as worth it as it used to be. What I just said is a correct statement. The cost of school isn't as worth it as it used to be. You used to spend $45,000 in school and you would come out making $45,000. You could pay off your school in very, very little time. Whereas now, you go to school, you spend $100,000, you come out making $45,000, it's going to take you more time to pay off that school. So it does take you longer to pay off your school now, But the author's point of view here was trying to say school isn't worth it. And that is 100% categorically false. Yes, it takes you longer to pay off, but what this absolutely does not show is over a lifetime, was school a worthwhile investment? And that's something that you need to know. And that's something that they talk about in these paragraphs down at the bottom. It says the income, I'm going to say another key piece of information is on the chart itself. It says, note the average yearly income salary grad can expect about $45,000 in 2010. That's per year. So on average in a working lifetime, say 43 years, assuming the age of retirement at 65, that gives you a total of almost $2 million that you would make. So if you subtract off the college expense, which was the $95,000, way higher than it used to be, you still have your net earnings of $1.84 million. So what could you expect if you were a high school grad? Well, if you were a high school grad working that exact same amount of time, including the time that you would work through school, those years that you were in school, you would only earn 1.3 million. So if you went to school, yes, you did pay a lot more for school, but you made about 2 million or profited about 1.84 if you take away that school costs. Whereas if you didn't go to school, you would have only made 1.3 million over the lifetime. So school is still significantly more worth it, almost a 50% higher amount on that one. Going to school, you earn about 50, anywhere from 40 to 50% more money than you would had you not gone to school. Now that's not for everyone. You still have the school dropouts, the people who didn't go to college. The inventor of Facebook didn't finish college, didn't get his college degree, and he's one of the richest people on the planet. So not everyone makes it rich by going to school, but in general, the average person is better, even though the cost of tuition and room and board and everything is skyrocketing. It is still a significant investment on your life. Your earning potentials over your lifetime are significantly more. So this graph is very short-sighted, showing only 1 year of return, not a lifetime of return. And that is extremely, extremely different numbers. So it's a very short-sighted point of view on a very long-term investment. Education is a long-term investment, not a short-term investment. So make sure you understand these graphs when you see these. They don't have to be political. A lot of people put graphs and show you data that display a one point of view, trying to point out what they want to show you. For instance, again, on this one, is school even worth it anymore? And they are showing you a very, very construed, manipulated picture to influence your point of view. They aren't showing you the big picture, what's actually going on, what's actually happening. So I hope this section was a little fun for you, trying to help you out of seeing what some of these graphs look like, what some of these graphs are trying to do. Again, this part of it's not on the test. The parts of it on the test are, you will see group frequency distributions on the test, you will see histograms on the test, but you're going to see those again in section 13.1 on statistics. This was just a fun section to try to get you to look at true, real news and get you to think, is it worth it or not? Before I pull the plug on this section, I wanted to show you just a couple more. These were some fun ones that I saw. So here was one again, our favorite, Fox News, 2012 presidential run. Let's look at this from the GOP's candidates. 70% back Palin, 60% back Romney, and 63% back Huckabee. Well, that's a very interesting pie chart to me. It seems if I add those numbers, I get significantly more than 100%, which is an absolute joke. And then the last one here is welfare versus full-time jobs. It says people on welfare, there's 108.6 million. People with a full-time job is 101.7 million. Holy crap, that's ridiculous. So what that's trying to say is there's more people on welfare than there is working. Hey, once again, it's our favorite news station that did this one. This is Fox News Channel. Go ahead and read the description about this one below, talking about where the hell are they getting their numbers from? Are they comparing apples to apples? And the answer is hell no, they're not. They're comparing apples to oranges. These two numbers are not at all the same. They're counting households in both of them. when they shouldn't be. They're counting more households in welfare and less households with full-time jobs. For instance, if you have someone who has a full-time job, but also someone in that household who is receiving assistance, you do not count in the people with the full-time job category. You count in the people on welfare category. That's the household you count in, even though you do have someone with a full-time job in there. And even if you have a full-time job, if you still, like a minimum wage job, and you're still getting welfare of some sort, you're counted in the welfare one, not in the one on the right. So this is very, very, very biased amounts here. Again, they're showing the size difference in here. It's like 4 or 5 times the size, so it makes you think so many more people are on welfare than those with a full-time job. Again, these statistics are bull crap, and the size difference, complete bull crap. In the grand scheme of things, 101 million is really close to 108 million. These numbers are not that drastically different, and the data is completely manipulated. So I hope you enjoyed this section. Take a look at those numbers. Watch out for Fox News and other news stations alike. Don't just buy the visuals. Make sure you understand the numbers behind them. Remember, always ask questions. Who was the set that they were talking about? Who is the sample? Where did they get this data from? What's the population? Who are they trying to talk about? Is it representative? Is this a fair representation of the data? Very rarely will you see a true good representation of the actual population. Usually your sample spaces are crap. They are not representative of the population, but they still use the data anyways. They still take the data that they got from their chosen set, their chosen group, and they use that for the entire population. So keep your eyes out for all this misleading data, all these misleading graphs in the news. Very, very interesting to me.